Welcome back, Rare Coin Insider. Have you ever looked at a simple penny and wondered if it could actually be worth a fortune, maybe even millions of dollars? Most people think pennies are just the smallest unit of currency, often tossed aside, left on sidewalks, or forgotten in jars. But the truth is, hidden in the pockets of history, certain pennies carry not only the weight of copper, but also the weight of incredible stories, mysteries, and unimaginable value. Today we are diving deep into one of the most talked about and legendary coins in American history, the 1970 D penny, a coin that on the surface seems ordinary, but is wrapped in layers of rarity, design significance, errors, collector mania, and in some cases claims of astronomical value reaching hundreds of millions of dollars. Now you might ask, how can a 1-cent coin, something that was meant for everyday circulation, be valued at something so insane? Well, to answer that, we have to begin from the very basics, from what this coin is, why it was minted, and what makes it special compared to billions of other pennies that were struck around that time. The year 1970 was a very interesting period in American coinage. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation since 1909, originally designed to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1970, the coin had gone through some subtle changes in design and metal composition. The penny in 1970, including the one minted at the Denver Mint, carried the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side, designed by Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, which had once caused controversy in 1909 when they were placed prominently on the reverse, were now tucked away discreetly on the obverse under Lincoln's shoulder. The reverse of the coin still featured the Lincoln Memorial, which had been adopted in 1959 to celebrate Lincoln's 150th birthday. If you look closely at the back of this penny, you can actually see the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, which is an incredible detail that many people overlook. That design was created by Frank Gasparo, and it remained the reverse of the penny until 2008. The 1970 D penny specifically refers to coins that were minted in Denver, Colorado. That D mint mark just below the date signifies its origin. In terms of composition, these coins were made primarily of copper, with a weight of 3.11 grams, a diameter of 19 millimeters, and a thickness of 1.52 millimeters. For most people, these numbers might sound like boring statistics, but to collectors, they are crucial because even the slightest deviation in weight or thickness can indicate an error coin or a variety that could be worth a fortune. The edge of the coin is plain, without reading, which is standard for pennies. Billions of pennies were minted in 1970, including those from Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Denver. The Denver Mint alone produced a staggering number of pennies, so at first glance, it seems impossible that one of these could be special. Yet within these massive mintages, small variations, minting errors, and rare proof issues turned some of these pennies into legendary finds. One of the most talked about varieties is the 1970s small date and large date pennies, particularly in proof form, which have driven collectors crazy for decades. But even within the Denver series, there are certain errors and unique conditions that create rarity. Collectors often search through rolls of 1970 pennies in hopes of stumbling upon these varieties. Now, here's where the story starts to get really fascinating. Some of these coins, depending on condition, error, and demand, have sold for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars at auctions. And then, of course, there are those viral stories and listings claiming that a single 1970 D penny could be worth an insane amount of money, sometimes exaggerated online to figures like $199 million. Is that real, or is it a myth? We'll get into that, but first let's keep peeling back the layers of this coin's identity. Imagine holding a penny in your hand. Most people wouldn't even bend down to pick one off the street, but coin collectors know better. They know that a single cent could carry a lifetime's worth of history. The 1970 penny, struck in the era of Vietnam War tensions, cultural shifts in America, and a changing economy, carries more than just a picture of Lincoln. It carries a slice of American history. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse symbolizes unity and remembrance of one of the most influential presidents in U.S. history. Every tiny groove, every press of the die, and every variation that happened at the mint gives these coins unique personalities. And while billions were made, only a handful stand out as extraordinary. When we talk about weight, it's important to note that the official 3.11 grams for a 1970 penny was based on the copper alloy standard. However, in the decades that followed, pennies were transitioned to a zinc-based composition due to the rising cost of copper. That means copper pennies, like the 1970 are already more desirable to some collectors because they contain almost all copper, making them heavier and more valuable in terms of metal content compared to modern pennies. Of course, the real value of the 1970 penny isn't in its melt value, it's in its collectability, its condition, its grading, and the errors that make certain examples stand out like diamonds in the rough. Now let's talk about grading for a moment. Grading is how collectors and numismatists evaluate the condition of a coin. A 1970 penny in poor, circulated condition might only be worth face value or a few cents above. But the exact same coin, if it comes out nearly flawless, with a brilliant luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear, could skyrocket in value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, flawless specimen. Mint state grades above MS65 are considered highly collectible, and for certain varieties, these can command thousands at auction. Imagine a coin that most people ignore, sitting in a drawer, could be hiding in plain sight with a grade so high it shocks the world when it goes to auction. When we dive deeper into the story of the 1970 penny, one of the first things that stands out is how many myths and exaggerations surround it. On the internet today, you'll see people posting listings on auction sites claiming their 1970 penny is worth hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. Some videos claim one is worth $199 million, a number that seems so absurd it makes most people laugh. But it also sparks curiosity. Why do people even think a penny could reach that kind of value? The reality is, while no 1970 penny has ever sold for anywhere near that price, there is truth in the idea that certain coins from this year are indeed highly valuable. It's a mixture of misinformation, viral hype, and real numismatic rarity that fuels this legend. The Denver Mint produced over 2.5 billion pennies in 1970, which means that by sheer numbers alone, these coins shouldn't be rare. Yet, collectors know that minting is not always a perfect process. Sometimes dies are doubled, sometimes coins are struck off center, sometimes the wrong planchets are used, and sometimes the dates or mint marks come out in strange variations. For the 1970 penny, one of the most famous errors is the double die variety. When a coin die is imprinted incorrectly, it can leave the date, the lettering, or other details doubled. To the untrained eye, it may look like a blurry or shadowed design, but to a collector, this doubling can multiply the value of a penny many times over. In fact, certain double die Lincoln cents from other years have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. If you were to come across a pristine 1970 double die penny graded at a high level, you could be looking at a serious payout. Beyond double dies, off-center strikes are another collectible error. Imagine a penny where Lincoln's face is shifted far to one side, leaving a blank crescent of copper showing. These mistakes, while technically flawed, are considered treasures by error coin collectors because they capture a unique moment of imperfection in the minting process. A 1970 penny struck off-center could fetch hundreds of dollars, and if combined with other rare traits, possibly even more. Then, there are coins struck on the wrong planchet, where a penny might have been mistakenly struck on a dime blank or even a foreign coin blank. These freak accidents of minting become some of the most desirable error coins on the market. Now, let's step into the world of grading once again, because this is where the value truly starts to climb. A normal 1970 penny in circulated condition is generally worth only a few cents to collectors, maybe 50 cents to $1 if someone wants an example in nice condition. But when you start climbing into mint state territory, things change. A bright red uncirculated 1970 penny graded MS65 or higher by a professional service like PCGS or NGC can sell for $20 to $50, sometimes more depending on the auction and demand. Go higher, into the MS66 or MS67 range, and now you're talking about coins worth hundreds of dollars. At MS67 Plus, these coins are exceedingly rare, and this is where serious collectors and investors start bidding aggressively. That's where you see prices crossing into the thousands. Oh, how does that leap to millions? The answer lies in hype, rarity, and perception. When a coin is advertised online as the only known specimen, people's imaginations run wild. The thought that a penny sitting in someone's change jar could make them rich overnight fuels a lot of the excitement around coins, like the 1970. Combine that with viral internet culture, and suddenly you have posts claiming $199 million values. In reality, no auction house has ever recorded such a sale, but the myth persists because it attracts attention. It makes headlines, it draws views, and it gets people to start checking their pocket change. And in the process, it brings new people into the hobby of coin collecting, which is something that actually strengthens the market overall. To understand the significance of the 1970 penny, we also need to talk about its place in history. The Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it's a symbol. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, represents unity, freedom, and leadership during one of the darkest periods in American history. The decision to place him on the cent in 1909 was groundbreaking, as he was the first real person to appear on a U.S. coin. By 1970, Lincoln's image had become iconic. People carried his face in their pockets every day, a reminder of American resilience and democracy. The coin, small as it is, has been part of countless stories, passed through hands during wars, economic shifts, recessions, booms, and generations of American life. The 1970 penny is not just metal, it's a historical artifact that ties us to the past. Collectors also love to talk about the design itself. On the obverse side, Brenner's portrait of Lincoln shows him facing right, with the word liberty on the left side of the coin and the motto, "I in God we trust," across the top. The date, of course, is on the right, and the mint mark, D, is placed just below it. The reverse side, Gasparo's Lincoln memorial design, is detailed and precise, a miniature architectural marvel. If you take a magnifying glass and look closely, you'll actually see the tiny figure of Lincoln sitting inside, which is one of those details that make collectors appreciate the artistry behind coins. For children discovering coins for the first time, it's like finding a hidden secret, and for adults, it's a reminder of the incredible craftsmanship that went into even the smallest denomination. Another fascinating element about the 1970 penny is its metal composition. These coins were made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. That makes them heavier and more substantial than today's pennies, which are mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. In fact, if you were to melt down a 1970 penny, its copper content would be worth more than 1 cent in raw metal value. However, melting down pennies is illegal under U.S. law, because it would lead to shortages and abuse. Still, the fact that these coins contain real copper adds to their appeal. They feel solid, they shine beautifully when uncirculated, and they carry that warm reddish hue that modern pennies lack. To collectors, this composition represents an era when coins still had intrinsic value beyond just their face amount. Now let's return to the idea of extreme value. Why do people claim a penny like this is worth $199 million? Part of it is misunderstanding. There have been some high-value penny sales in the past, like the 1943 copper penny, which has sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases over $1 million. Stories of these rare coins get mixed together online, and suddenly people start attaching astronomical values to any old penny they find. Another part of it is marketing. Sellers on platforms sometimes post outrageous prices for common coins just to get attention, hoping that someone uninformed will think they've stumbled onto a treasure. While these prices are not real, they create a buzz. Videos get made, people start searching their change, and the legend grows. And then, within all the myths, there is still the tiny spark of truth, because in certain grades, certain varieties, and certain errors, a 1970 penny really can be worth big money, though not hundreds of millions. It could still be thousands. Think about it this way. A normal penny is like a grain of sand on a beach. But every so often, you find a grain of sand that's different, a gem among the ordinary. That's what error coins and high-grade specimens are like. The thrill of searching, the possibility of discovering something rare, is what drives collectors. It's like treasure hunting, but instead of digging on an island, you're digging through pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars. And for some lucky people, the treasure hunt is paid off, turning a single cent into a life-changing sum. When we start to examine the real marketplace for the 1970 penny, things get interesting because the numbers tell a story very different from the viral claims. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and eBay listings give us the clearest window into how much these coins have actually sold for. And while none of them have reached $199 million, there have been some surprising results. In Mint State 67 Red, a 1970 penny has sold for more than $3,000, and even those figures shock people who are not familiar with coin collecting. Imagine holding a 1-cent piece that looks just like the billions of others, but because of its pristine preservation, because of the fact that it escaped circulation and stayed untouched for over 50 years, it commands thousands of dollars at auction. That's the kind of magic that keeps collectors fascinated. There's a psychological thrill in coin collecting that explains why the market behaves the way it does. Humans are naturally drawn to rarity. If something is rare, even if it's small, simple, or seemingly unimportant, it becomes desirable. The 1970 penny taps into that instinct because while billions were made, only a tiny fraction survived in top condition, and an even tinier fraction emerged with minting errors that make them unique. Collectors chase after those anomalies like treasure hunters. They know that once a coin is graded and placed into a holder by PCGS or NGC with a top rating, it becomes a permanent record, a benchmark for the coin's rarity. The higher the grade, the fewer there are, and that drives up prices exponentially. The market for Lincoln cents is especially strong because this series is one of the most popular among U.S. coin collectors. From the original 1909 VDB cents to the steel cents of 1943, all the way to the memorial and shield designs, Lincoln pennies tell a century-long story of American culture, economy, and history. For new collectors, pennies are often the first coin they collect because they're so common, inexpensive, and accessible. That means there's a massive base of people interested in them, and within that base, serious collectors with deep pockets compete for the very best examples. When that demand meets limited supply, prices soar. But the market is not just about auctions and wealthy collectors. It's also about everyday people who stumble across these coins and start researching them. Maybe someone finds an old jar of pennies their grandfather collected, or maybe they see a strange doubling on the date of a penny in their pocket change. The internet then tells them it could be worth millions, and suddenly they're hooked. Even if most of those pennies turn out to be common, that spark of curiosity can turn into a lifelong passion for numismatics. The 1970 penny has become a gateway for many people entering the hobby, because it's one of the coins most often associated with viral, hidden treasure stories. Whether or not those stories exaggerate the truth, they still serve to inspire curiosity. It's important to also discuss how grading companies influence the market. When PCGS or NGC grades a coin, they essentially authenticate it, confirm its condition, and assign a number that can make or break its value. For example, a 1970 penny in MS65 might be worth $50, but the same coin in MS67 could be worth thousands. That tiny difference in grading reflects the extreme rarity of perfection in mass-produced coins. Collectors and investors rely on these grading services because they eliminate doubt. If a coin is raw, meaning ungraded, buyers may hesitate, suspecting it might not be genuine or as nice as the seller claims. But once it's graded and encapsulated, confidence increases, and so does market activity. This is why people send coins in for grading. It's the difference between pocket change and auction-worthy treasure. And then there's the flip side, the world of fakes and scams. Whenever a coin gets hyped as being worth millions, scammers jump in. Online marketplaces are flooded with common pennies listed at absurd prices, sometimes by sellers who know exactly what they're doing, and sometimes by people who genuinely believe they have something rare. The problem is, most of those coins are not rare at all, and inexperienced buyers can easily be misled. Experts always caution collectors to do their homework, to consult real price guides, auction records, and numismatic references. That's the only way to separate truth from fiction. For the 1970 penny, the truth is that while some examples are genuinely valuable, the majority are worth just a few cents. The key is condition, errors, and rarity, not just the date and mint mark. So how does the legend of the $199 million penny persist? Partly it's because of misunderstanding, but partly it's because people love the idea of hidden wealth. The thought that a humble coin, overlooked by billions, could secretly be worth more than a mansion excites the imagination. It's like a modern-day fairy tale, a story that gets repeated and exaggerated every time someone posts a screenshot of a ridiculous online listing. The number grows, the legend grows, and before long it takes on a life of its own. And while experts may roll their eyes, the truth is that these stories keep the hobby alive. They bring new energy, new eyes, and new hands to coin collecting, ensuring that coins like the 1970 penny remain relevant and fascinating. Collectors who know the market understand the difference between hype and reality. They know that while no 1970 penny is going to sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, there are still life-changing coins out there. Imagine being the person who finds a double-die penny in near-perfect condition, sends it in for grading, and sees it return with an MS67 red designation. Suddenly, that penny is no longer just spare change, it's worth thousands. That's the thrill, and that's why people keep looking. For many, it's not even about the money. It's about the hunt, the satisfaction of discovery, and the connection to history that each coin represents. The auction world feeds on these stories. Whenever a rare penny hits the block, it makes headlines. Articles appear, blogs write about it, YouTube videos are made, and social media spreads the news like wildfire. That attention drives more people to check their change, more people to send coins in for grading, and more people to bid on auctions. It's a cycle of excitement and value that keeps spinning. And while not every coin reaches the astronomical prices of legend, enough coins sell for thousands that the dream stays alive. The 1970 penny, with its errors, its high-grade rarities, and its place in history, is one of the key players in this ongoing story. Now think about the bigger picture. Coins are not just metal. They are artifacts, art pieces, historical records, and in some cases, investments. The 1970 penny checks all those boxes. It's a piece of American history, bearing the face of a president who shaped the nation. It's an art piece, showcasing the work of Brenner and Gasparo. It's a historical record of the minting practices of the 1970s, complete with the mistakes and variations that occurred. And for some, it's an investment, a chance to buy something that might increase in value over time. That's why collectors take it so seriously, and why this little penny has earned such a big reputation. When we start digging into the details of the 1970 D penny, one of the most fascinating aspects is the world of error coins and varieties. This is where ordinary cents become extraordinary, where what looks like a small mistake transforms into something collectors will fight over. The Denver Mint in 1970 was operating at high capacity, striking billions of pennies, and when production numbers are that large, it's inevitable that mistakes will happen. Some of those mistakes are subtle, while others are dramatic and instantly recognizable. And those are the ones that drive collectors crazy. One of the most popular errors that collectors look for is the double die variety. Now, a double die is not the same as a coin being struck twice. Instead, it happens during the die-making process itself, when the design is impressed onto the die more than once, but not in perfect alignment. This means that every coin struck from that die carries a doubled image. On a 1970 D penny, that might appear as doubling in the date, in the word liberty, or in the motto "I in God we trust." Sometimes the doubling is bold and dramatic, other times it's subtle, requiring magnification to see. But either way, when collectors spot this variety, they know it's something special. The value of a double die can range from a few hundred to several $1,000s depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition of the coin. Another sought-after error is the repunched mint mark, often called an RPM. Back in 1970, mint marks were hand-punched onto the dies, which means there was room for human error. Sometimes the D mint mark was punched more than once, and if the punches weren't perfectly aligned, you'd end up with a doubled D or one that looked shadowed or offset. These repunched mint marks are considered minor varieties by some, but they're still highly collectible because they represent a unique fingerprint of the minting process. A sharp repunched D on a 1970 penny can fetch a strong premium over face value, especially in high grades. Then we have off-center strikes, where the coin was not properly centered when it was struck by the die. This can result in a coin where part of Lincoln's portrait is missing, or where a large blank crescent of copper is left on one side. The degree of off-center matters a lot. A slight off-center might not be worth much, but a dramatic 50% off-center with a clear date and mint mark can bring in serious money. Collectors love these because they are visually striking and obviously unique. No two off-center errors are exactly alike. There are also broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally contains it, causing it to spread out wider than usual. These can look warped or stretched, and while they might not carry the same value as double dies, they're still intriguing collectibles. And then, there are wrong planchet errors, which are some of the rarest and most valuable of all. A wrong planchet error happens when a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. For example, if a 1970 D penny was struck on a dime planchet, it would be smaller, lighter, and silver-colored, creating a bizarre hybrid coin that collectors would pay thousands to own. Imagine for a moment being the person who finds one of these error coins in their pocket change. You're sorting through a handful of pennies, most of them brown and worn, and suddenly you notice something odd. Maybe the date looks doubled, maybe the mint mark looks shadowed, maybe the coin looks stretched or off-center. At first, you might think it's just wear and tear, but then you take a closer look and realize you've stumbled onto something rare. For many collectors, that exact moment of discovery is what keeps them hooked on the hobby. It's the thrill of knowing that treasure can still be found in the most ordinary of places. There have been real stories of people finding valuable 1970 D pennies in circulation. One man reportedly discovered a double die variety in a roll of pennies he bought from the bank for just 50 cents. He sent it in for grading, and it came back as a high mint state double die, which later sold for thousands at auction. Another collector found an off-center strike while going through his grandfather's old coin jars, and though it wasn't in perfect condition, it still sold for hundreds because of its dramatic appearance. These stories spread across forums, YouTube videos, and news articles, fueling the belief that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. The most famous variety associated with the year 1970 is actually the 1970s small date-proof penny, which is worth thousands in the right condition, but because of the hype surrounding that, people often confuse it with the 1970D. This confusion adds to the legend. Someone hears that a 1970 penny sold for $10,000, and without understanding the difference between the small date San Francisco proof and the regular Denver circulation strike, they assume all 1970 pennies are valuable. That misunderstanding spreads like wildfire, and suddenly you have eBay sellers listing common 1970 pennies for ridiculous sums, some as high as millions. While those listings are unrealistic, they do highlight the power of perception in the coin world. It's worth noting that spotting errors and varieties requires a careful eye and sometimes specialized tools. A simple magnifying glass can help, but serious collectors often use jeweler's loupes or even microscopes to examine coins closely. Lighting is also crucial, because the way shadows fall on the surface can reveal doubling or distortions that aren't obvious in normal light. Some collectors keep reference books or digital guides on hand to compare what they see against known varieties. It's almost like detective work, piecing together clues to determine whether a coin is common or rare. And that sense of investigation adds another layer of excitement to the hunt. Now let's talk about the economics of error coins. Unlike regular high-grade coins, which are valued mainly on condition, error coins are valued on uniqueness and demand. There is no fixed price for an off-center strike or a wrong planchet error. The market sets the price based on how dramatic the error is and how many collectors want it. That's why you can see wild swings in prices at auction. A minor double die might sell for a few hundred, while a major one could reach several thousand. A small off-center might fetch $20, while a huge off-center with a visible date could bring in hundreds. The unpredictability of this market is part of what makes it so thrilling. For the 1970D penny, error coins are especially appealing because the Denver Mint had such high output. With billions struck, the odds of mistakes were naturally higher. Collectors know this, so they hunt relentlessly for those mistakes, hoping to find the next gem. And when they do, they not only profit financially, but also make a mark on numismatic history. Every time a new variety or significant error is discovered, it gets cataloged, studied, and added to the collective knowledge of the hobby. That means a single discovery can change the way collectors view an entire year of coinage. And remember, the vast majority of 1970D pennies are still just ordinary cents, but it's that small percentage of extraordinary ones that fuel the imagination. It's like panning for gold. You sift through thousands of ordinary rocks, but the possibility of finding that one nugget keeps you going. Coin roll hunters, collectors, and treasure seekers all share that same passion, and the 1970D penny is one of their favorite targets because of its rich combination of history, design, and error potential. When it comes to the hunt for rare coins, the 1970D penny has become a favorite target for thousands of collectors across the United States and even around the world. The way people search for them can almost feel like a full-time job. Some collectors dedicate hours every day to searching through bank rolls. They go to local banks, request boxes of pennies, and then spend night after night carefully inspecting each coin with magnifying glasses and loupes. The process can be exhausting, but it's also addictive, because the dream is always alive that inside one of those rolls there could be a double die, a dramatic off-center, or a pristine uncirculated specimen that somehow slipped through circulation untouched. Others look through old family jars, coffee cans filled with pennies collected over decades. Those jars, often kept by grandparents and great-grandparents, can hold surprises because many of the coins inside were pulled out of circulation years ago when they were still relatively new. Coin shows and flea markets are another hunting ground. Collectors will spend hours scanning through dealer tables, flipping through boxes of cheap coins labeled 5 cents each or 10 for $1, hoping to spot something special that others overlooked. Sometimes, these overlooked treasures turn out to be valuable varieties or high-grade examples hiding in plain sight. Stories circulate within the community of lucky finds, like someone buying a roll of common-looking 1970 pennies for a couple of dollars, only to discover that one of them graded at MS-67 red and sold for thousands. Tales like these keep the excitement alive, and they also fuel the market, because everyone wants to be the next person to strike gold from pocket change. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC play a central role in this ecosystem. They are the gatekeepers of authenticity and condition. When a collector believes they've found something special, the next step is to send the coin to one of these companies. The process involves carefully packaging the penny, paying a grading fee, and waiting weeks or months for the result. When the coin comes back, it's encapsulated in a hard plastic holder with a label that shows its grade, its variety if applicable, and its certification number. That certification gives the coin legitimacy and makes it much easier to sell at auction or to other collectors. Without it, the coin is just someone's claim. With it, the coin becomes part of the official numismatic record. The difference that grading makes in value is extraordinary. A raw 1970 penny, even if it looks nice, might sell for only a few dollars. But once graded MS-66 or higher, it could leap into the hundreds or thousands, because buyers now have confidence in what they are purchasing. Grading also helps detect counterfeits. While faking pennies is less common than faking gold or silver coins, the hype around high-value varieties means there are always people willing to try. Grading companies act as a safeguard, protecting collectors from spending money on coins that aren't what they appear to be. Some famous sales of 1970 pennies illustrate just how much value condition can add. Coins graded at MS-67 red have sold for well over $3,000 at major auction houses. One particularly pristine example, with blazing original luster and no visible marks under magnification, fetched a sum that shocked even seasoned collectors, because it showed just how rare perfection truly is among billions of coins. While these figures might seem modest compared to the exaggerated $199 million claims, they are still staggering when you consider that the starting point is a coin with a face value of 1 cent. Turning 1 cent into thousands is a remarkable transformation, and it explains why so many people chase after these coins. Now let's talk about the psychology behind paying so much for a penny. To outsiders, it might seem insane. Why would anyone spend $3,000, $10,000, or even more on something they could technically still find in circulation? But for collectors, it makes perfect sense. Rare coins are not just money. They are art, history, status symbols, and sometimes investments. When someone pays thousands for a 1970 penny, they are buying more than copper. They are buying a piece of history, a tangible artifact that connects them to the past. They are buying rarity, the knowledge that very few others in the world own something so special. They are also buying prestige, because within the coin collecting world, owning a top-grade specimen earns respect and admiration from peers. There's also the emotional connection. Many collectors started as children, fascinated by the idea that coins had secrets hidden in them. For them, buying a rare penny as an adult is not just a financial decision, it's the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. It's a way of holding on to that childhood wonder while also participating in a grown-up market of serious collecting. And for some, it's even about legacy. Coins like the 1970 penny can be passed down to future generations, carrying with them stories of discovery, value, and passion. A grandfather might leave a collection to his grandchildren, and within that collection could be a coin that sparks their own journey into numismatics. Another factor is investment potential. While the coin market has ups and downs, certain rare varieties and high-grade examples tend to hold or increase in value over time. Collectors know that buying a top-grade 1970 penny is not just spending money, it's storing value in a tangible asset. Unlike paper money, which can be printed endlessly, rare coins have fixed populations. Once they're graded and recorded, that number doesn't change, and scarcity tends to drive value upward over the long term. That makes coins appealing not just to hobbyists, but also to investors, who see them as a form of alternative wealth. It's fascinating how the same coin can mean different things to different people. To one person, a 1970 penny is just spare change. To another, it's an art piece. To another, it's an investment. And to someone else, it's a treasure that represents a thrilling hunt and a triumphant find. That diversity of meaning is part of what makes coins so powerful as collectibles. They are simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, common and rare, worthless and priceless, depending on the eye of the beholder. The hunt, the grading, the famous sales, and the psychology of value all come together to explain why the 1970 penny has achieved legendary status. Even though most of them are worth only a cent, the possibility that one could be worth thousands keeps people looking. The myth of millions, even hundreds of millions, might be exaggerated, but it adds fuel to the fire. It keeps people checking their change, keeps the hobby alive, and keeps the story of this little copper coin alive in the modern imagination. When it comes to the hunt for rare coins, the 1970 penny has become a favorite target for thousands of collectors across the United States and even around the world. The way people search for them can almost feel like a full-time job. Some collectors dedicate hours every day to searching through bank rolls. They go to local banks, request boxes of pennies, and then spend night after night carefully inspecting each coin with magnifying glasses and loupes. The process can be exhausting, but it's also addictive, because the dream is always alive that inside one of those rolls there could be a double die, a dramatic off-center, or a pristine uncirculated specimen that somehow slipped through circulation untouched. Others look through old family jars, coffee cans filled with pennies collected over decades. Those jars, often kept by grandparents and great-grandparents, can hold surprises, because many of the coins inside were pulled out of circulation years ago when they were still relatively new. Coin shows and flea markets are another hunting ground. Collectors will spend hours scanning through dealer tables, flipping through boxes of cheap coins labeled 5 cents each or 10 for $1, hoping to spot something special that others overlooked. Sometimes, these overlooked treasures turn out to be valuable varieties or high-grade examples hiding in plain sight. Stories circulate within the community of lucky finds, like someone buying a roll of common-looking 1970 pennies for a couple of dollars, only to discover that one of them graded at MS-67 red and sold for thousands. Tales like these keep the excitement alive, and they also fuel the market, because everyone wants to be the next person to strike gold from pocket change. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC play a central role in this ecosystem. They are the gatekeepers of authenticity and condition. When a collector believes they've found something special, the next step is to send the coin to one of these companies. The process involves carefully packaging the penny, paying a grading fee, and waiting weeks or months for the result. When the coin comes back, it's encapsulated in a hard plastic holder with a label that shows its grade, its variety if applicable, and its certification number. That certification gives the coin legitimacy and makes it much easier to sell at auction or to other collectors. Without it, the coin is just someone's claim. With it, the coin becomes part of the official numismatic record. The difference that grading makes in value is extraordinary. A raw 1970 penny, even if it looks nice, might sell for only a few dollars. But once graded MS66 or higher, it could leap into the hundreds or thousands, because buyers now have confidence in what they are purchasing. Grading also helps detect counterfeits. While faking pennies is less common than faking gold or silver coins, the hype around high-value varieties means there are always people willing to try. Grading companies act as a safeguard, protecting collectors from spending money on coins that aren't what they appear to be. Some famous sales of 1970 pennies illustrate just how much value condition can add. Coins graded at MS67 red have sold for well over $3,000 at major auction houses. One particularly pristine example, with blazing original luster and no visible marks under magnification, fetched a sum that shocked even seasoned collectors, because it showed just how rare perfection truly is among billions of coins. While these figures might seem modest compared to the exaggerated $199 million claims, they are still staggering when you consider that the starting point is a coin with a face value of 1 cent. Turning 1 cent into thousands is a remarkable transformation, and it explains why so many people chase after these coins. Now let's talk about the psychology behind paying so much for a penny. To outsiders, it might seem insane. Why would anyone spend $3,000, $10,000, or even more on something they could technically still find in circulation? But for collectors, it makes perfect sense. Rare coins are not just money. They are art, history, status symbols, and sometimes investments. When someone pays thousands for a 1970 penny, they are buying more than copper. They are buying a piece of history, a tangible artifact that connects them to the past. They are buying rarity, the knowledge that very few others in the world own something so special. They are also buying prestige, because within the coin collecting world, owning a top-grade specimen earns respect and admiration from peers. There's also the emotional connection. Many collectors started as children, fascinated by the idea that coins had secrets hidden in them. For them, buying a rare penny as an adult is not just a financial decision, it's the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. It's a way of holding on to that childhood wonder while also participating in a grown-up market of serious collecting. And for some, it's even about legacy. Coins like the 1970 penny can be passed down to future generations, carrying with them stories of discovery, value, and passion. A grandfather might leave a collection to his grandchildren, and within that collection could be a coin that sparks their own journey into numismatics. Another factor is investment potential. While the coin market has ups and downs, certain rare varieties and high-grade examples tend to hold or increase in value over time. Collectors know that buying a top-grade 1970 penny is not just spending money, it's storing value in a tangible asset. Unlike paper money, which can be printed endlessly, rare coins have fixed populations. Once they're graded and recorded, that number doesn't change, and scarcity tends to drive value upward over the long term. That makes coins appealing not just to hobbyists, but also to investors, who see them as a form of alternative wealth. It's fascinating how the same coin can mean different things to different people. To one person, a 1970 penny is just spare change. To another, it's an art piece. To another, it's an investment. And to someone else, it's a treasure that represents a thrilling hunt and a triumphant find. That diversity of meaning is part of what makes coins so powerful as collectibles. They are simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, common and rare, worthless and priceless, depending on the eye of the beholder. The hunt, the grading, the famous sales, and the psychology of value all come together to explain why the 1970 penny has achieved legendary status. Even though most of them are worth only a cent, the possibility that one could be worth thousands keeps people looking. The myth of millions, even hundreds of millions, might be exaggerated, but it adds fuel to the fire. It keeps people checking their change, keeps the hobby alive, and keeps the story of this little copper coin alive in the modern imagination. When we talk about rare pennies, the 1970D is often placed in conversation with some of the most legendary coins in American numismatics, and that comparison helps us understand its place in history and in the collector's market. Everyone has heard about the 1943 copper penny, the so-called Holy Grail of cents. In 1943, during World War II, the U.S. Mint switched to making pennies out of steel coated in zinc, because copper was needed for the war effort. But a few copper planchets accidentally made their way into the presses, resulting in the famous 1943 copper cents. These coins are extremely rare and have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. That story of rarity born from accident is exactly the kind of narrative that collectors love, and it's the same type of magic that makes the 1970D double die such a fascinating target. While the 1970D may not reach the astronomical values of a 1943 copper cent, it shares that aura of mystery and rarity that fuels excitement and treasure hunts. Then, there is the 1955 double die penny, another giant in the world of collectible coins. In that case, the doubling is so dramatic and obvious that anyone, even without magnification, can see it. The date and lettering jump out, bold and doubled, almost like a printing mistake. That coin became instantly famous, and over the decades it has become one of the most desired error coins in American history. The 1970D double die pennies are in some ways their spiritual successors. They may not be as bold as the 1955, but they carry the same principle. A small error at the mint turned into a big deal for collectors. Every time a 1970D double die shows up at auction, people are reminded of that same thrill that the 1955 brought to the hobby. It's as if each new generation of collectors has its own double die to chase after, and the 1970D is one of the best known of the modern era. Another famous error penny is the 1969S double die, which is especially relevant because it's so close in date to the 1970D. That coin is one of the most spectacular double dies ever produced, with extremely strong doubling on the date and lettering, and it is also very rare. The 1969S double die commands huge prices when it appears for sale, sometimes in the tens of thousands or more. Collectors naturally link the 1970D to it, because the two coins are close in time and both from an era when double dies were showing up in circulation with some regularity. For many collectors who cannot afford the sky-high price tag of a 1969S, the 1970D becomes a more attainable goal, still rare, still valuable, but within reach for a determined hobbyist. When we compare the 1970D to these legendary coins, what becomes clear is that rarity alone does not make a coin iconic. It is the combination of rarity, story, and timing. The 1943 copper cent tells the story of wartime America. The 1955 double die tells the story of a minting mistake that slipped through and shocked the public. And the 1970D tells the story of a new generation of collectors in the 1970s discovering the hidden treasures in their pocket change. Each coin reflects its time and captures the imagination of those who study it. The 1970D penny stands proudly among them, not because it's the most valuable, but because it carries that same spark of excitement, that same invitation to search, that same reminder that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary of places. In many ways, the 1970D penny is the people's rare coin. The 1943 copper cent is so rare that most collectors will never even see one in person, let alone own one. The 1955 double die, while more common, is still expensive enough that it's out of reach for many. But the 1970D, though still rare in its era varieties, remains a coin that ordinary collectors feel they can chase. It's the thrill of the possible, the idea that somewhere, in a roll of pennies from the bank or a jar passed down from a relative, there might be one hiding. That sense of possibility makes the 1970D special because it keeps the dream alive for everyone, not just wealthy collectors. When you line up these famous coins, the 1943 copper, the 1955 double die, the 1969S double die, and the 1970D, you can see a pattern. They are all products of human error, moments where the precision of the mint slipped just enough to create something extraordinary. That's part of the irony. The very institution that is supposed to guarantee consistency and perfection occasionally produces mistakes that become far more valuable than the normal output. Collectors love that irony, because it reminds us that perfection is not always the most valuable trait. Sometimes it is the flaws, the quirks, the little imperfections that make something truly desirable. The 1970D penny embodies that truth, just as much as its more famous predecessors do. What also makes the 1970D particularly interesting is the timing of its fame. By the 1970s, coin collecting had exploded in popularity. The 1955 double die had already shown people that rare coins could be hiding in their change, and the 1969S double die had added fuel to that fire. So when the 1970D varieties began to be noticed, the collector community was ready. People were actively looking, spreading the word through coin magazines, hobby clubs, and conventions. The excitement was contagious, and it ensured that the 1970D penny would not fade into obscurity. Instead, it became part of the lore of modern numismatics, a coin that everyone wanted to learn about, a coin that symbolized the thrill of the hunt. Even today, when new varieties and modern errors are discovered almost every year, the 1970D still holds its place. New coins may capture attention for a while, but few achieve the lasting recognition that comes with being mentioned in the same breath as the 1943 copper or the 1955 double die. The 1970D has achieved that status. It is not just a rare penny, it is part of the collector's conversation, a benchmark, a reference point that people use to compare other finds. That kind of reputation does not come easily, and it shows that the coin has earned its place in history. So, while it may never be the single most valuable penny in the world, the 1970D does not need to be. Its importance lies in its role as a bridge between the legendary rarities of the past and the modern discoveries of the present. It connects collectors across generations, reminding them that rare treasures can still be found, that the excitement of coin collecting is alive, and that even the smallest coin, a 1-cent piece, can carry a story worth telling and retelling. That is why the 1970D holds a special place in the heart of the hobby, and why it continues to inspire both veteran collectors and newcomers alike. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1970D penny is not just the coin itself, but the legends and rumors that surround it. Over the past few decades, stories have spread claiming that this humble 1-cent piece is worth not just thousands, not just tens of thousands, but millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars. If you spend any time online, especially on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, or Facebook, you will inevitably come across a video or post boldly declaring that a 1970D penny can make you rich overnight. Some even put wild numbers on it, like $199 million, numbers so exaggerated that they capture attention instantly. And while those figures are far beyond the reality of the coin market, they play an important role in keeping the 1970D penny in the spotlight. The psychology of these exaggerated claims is simple. People love the idea of hidden treasure. For centuries, humans have been captivated by the possibility that something ordinary could secretly be extraordinary. Whether it's stories of buried pirate gold, lost civilizations, or winning lottery tickets, the theme is always the same: the chance that your life could change with one lucky discovery. The 1970D penny fits perfectly into that narrative. After all, everyone has access to pennies. Everyone has loose change, old jars of coins, or the ability to go to the bank and get rolls. So when someone hears that a penny they might already own could be worth a fortune, their imagination lights up. They start looking at their change differently, hoping to be the lucky one who strikes it rich. The internet has magnified this phenomenon to unprecedented levels. In the past, knowledge about rare coins spread slowly through magazines, coin clubs, and word of mouth. Now, with a single viral video, millions of people can suddenly hear that a certain coin is worth millions. Even if the claim is exaggerated, the message spreads fast. A TikTok with flashy text and exciting background music can show a picture of a 1970 penny and boldly announce its supposed multi-million-dollar value, and within hours it reaches thousands of curious viewers. Some of those viewers then make their own videos, repeating the claim, and soon the rumor takes on a life of its own. It becomes part of popular culture, divorced from the strict facts of numismatics, but powerful in its ability to capture attention, and that attention is not all bad. While professional collectors may roll their eyes at the unrealistic numbers, the truth is that these rumors bring new people into the hobby. Many collectors alive today started their journey because they heard about a rare penny and wanted to find one. Even if they eventually learn that their coin isn't worth millions, they often discover the joy of coin collecting along the way. They start reading, studying, joining online groups, and before they know it, they're hooked on the hunt. The 1970 penny, thanks to its legends, has recruited countless new collectors into the world of numismatics. There are also stories in the media that add fuel to the fire. Every so often, an article gets published with a dramatic headline like, "Check your change. This penny could be worth thousands." While the article itself usually explains that only rare varieties or high-grade examples are valuable, many people only see the headline, and from there the myth grows. Someone reads thousands and tells a friend millions, and soon the story is repeated in exaggerated form until it seems almost believable. The telephone game of rumors works the same way with coins as it does with anything else, and the 1970 penny has been one of its favorite subjects. The claim that one of these coins is worth $199 million is a perfect example. No 1970 penny has ever sold for anywhere near that amount. In fact, the highest prices for known varieties and top-graded examples are in the range of thousands, not millions. But the number 199 million is so shocking, so outrageous, that it sticks in people's minds. It makes for a great headline, a great story, and in today's online world, attention is everything. Whether it's accurate or not almost doesn't matter, because the idea of the penny being worth nearly $200 million is irresistible. It makes people look in their pockets. It makes them click on videos. It makes them share the story with friends. That energy keeps the legend alive, and while it might frustrate purists who want the facts to be clear, it undeniably helps keep coins like the 1970 in constant conversation. In a way, these myths give the 1970 penny a second life. Without the legends, it might have faded into the background of numismatic history, known only to dedicated collectors. Instead, it has become a kind of pop culture icon, a coin that even people who know nothing about numismatics have heard of. Ask a random person about rare coins, and chances are they might mention the 1970 penny, even if they don't know exactly why. That level of recognition is rare for any collectible, and it shows how powerful stories can be in shaping the reputation of an object. The fascinating part is that behind the myths, there is still a core of truth. While no 1970 penny is worth hundreds of millions, some are indeed worth thousands. That means the excitement isn't completely misplaced. The legends exaggerate the reality, but the reality itself is still remarkable. The fact that a 1-cent coin from 1970 could realistically sell for a few $1,000s is already extraordinary. It means that the dream is not pure fantasy. The dream is based on something real, something possible, something that has happened to real collectors. That balance between truth and exaggeration is what makes the 1970 penny such a perfect subject for stories, because it straddles the line between fact and legend so beautifully. Even professional collectors admit that the myths, while sometimes annoying, can be beneficial. They create buzz around the hobby. They get people talking. They inspire new generations to start looking through their change. Every time someone searches for $1 million penny, they are also learning about double dies, mint marks, grading, and history. They are being educated, even if they don't realize it, and that keeps the tradition of coin collecting alive. So while the rumors about a 1970 penny being worth $199 million may never be true, the excitement they generate is very real, and the impact on the hobby is lasting. In the end, the myths themselves have become part of the coin's story. The 1970 penny is no longer just a coin, it is a symbol of possibility, a reminder that treasure might be hiding in plain sight, and a testament to the power of storytelling. The legends will continue to circulate, the videos will continue to go viral, and the penny will continue to capture imaginations, not because of what it is objectively worth, but because of what it represents: hope, excitement, and the dream of turning something ordinary into something extraordinary. When we take a closer look at the 1970 penny, beyond the myths, beyond the stories, we discover the technical beauty of this small coin. Every set produced by the Denver Mint in 1970 was made according to strict specifications set by the United States Mint. At that time, the penny was still composed primarily of copper, 95% copper, and 5% zinc and tin. That composition gave the coin its rich reddish color, a warmth that modern zinc-based pennies simply do not possess. When you hold a 1970 penny in your hand, even if you are not a collector, you can feel that difference. The weight is slightly heavier, the color more natural, the surface more alive with luster. This is part of why collectors are so attached to copper pennies. They have a character, a tangible presence, that makes them feel like real money in a way that modern lightweight cents often lack. The official weight of the 1970 penny is 3.11 grams. That figure might seem trivial, but in the world of numismatics, every decimal matters. A deviation in weight can indicate something unusual, perhaps an error, perhaps a foreign planchet accidentally used, perhaps something that slipped through quality control. Collectors and graders weigh coins carefully to make sure they match specifications, and when they don't, it becomes a clue to investigate. For the standard 1970D, however, that 3.11 grams is a reassuring sign of authenticity and consistency. When you line up a handful of them on a scale, they should all fall right around the number, each one a product of careful minting in the Denver facility. The diameter of the coin is 19 millimeters, and its thickness is 1.55 millimeters, dimensions that had been consistent for decades by the time these coins were struck. Those numbers are not just measurements. They are standards that allowed pennies to fit in cash registers, vending machines, and other coin-operated devices of the time. Every tiny detail of the penny's size was part of a larger system designed to keep commerce running smoothly. When we measure and study these coins today, we are not only looking at metal, we are looking at the precision of an entire economic system built around coins that worked exactly as expected. The design of the coin is another technical marvel. On the obverse, Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln had been in use since 1909, and by 1970, it was deeply familiar to every American. The level of detail in the portrait, the lines of Lincoln's hair, the curve of his cheek, the thoughtful expression, is extraordinary when you consider that it is struck on such a tiny surface. Collectors often use magnification to appreciate these details, and in high-grade coins, the sharpness of those features can make a huge difference in value. A coin where Lincoln's hair is fully detailed, where the jawline is crisp, where the lettering is sharp and free of blur, will always command a higher grade and a higher price than one where those details have worn away or struck weakly. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design adds another layer of intricacy. The memorial is not just a building. Within its tiny engraving, you can actually see the seated statue of Lincoln, a coin within a coin, a tribute within a tribute. That level of detail was a technical achievement, showing the mint's ability to produce fine engravings on such a small canvas. For collectors, examining the reverse of a 1970 penny under magnification can be a rewarding experience, because in well-struck examples, the columns of the memorial stand tall, the steps are defined, and even the tiniest details come alive. It is artistry in miniature, preserved in copper. The mint mark, that small D under the date, is another crucial detail. It tells us the coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the busiest facilities in the country. In 1970, the Denver Mint produced billions of coins, and the pressure to keep up with demand meant that errors sometimes slipped through. That is why we see varieties such as repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once and left a doubled impression. For a casual observer, this might look like nothing, but for collectors, it's a goldmine of excitement. That tiny detail transforms a common penny into a rare and valuable variety. Strike quality is also a key factor. Not every 1970 penny was struck with equal force or precision. Some coins received strong strikes, where the dies pressed the design deeply and clearly into the metal, creating sharp and beautiful details. Others received weak strikes, where the design looks flat, mushy, or incomplete. This difference often comes down to the pressure of the minting press, the condition of the dies, or the alignment of the planchet. Collectors prize strong strikes, especially on older coins like this, because they better preserve the artistry of the design. Surface condition is equally technical. A coin can have bag marks, scratches, or spots from contact with other coins during production and transportation. These tiny imperfections may not matter to a casual viewer, but they matter enormously in grading. A 1970 penny with flawless surfaces, no marks, and blazing original luster can jump in value dramatically compared to one with visible marks or dullness. That is why collectors obsess over details that seem small. A single scratch on the cheek of Lincoln can mean the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and one worth a few thousand. Luster, the way light reflects off the coin's surface, is another technical factor. Freshly minted coins have a distinctive shine caused by the microscopic flow lines of metal created when the dies strike the planchet. Over time, handling, circulation, and exposure dull that shine. Collectors seek coins with original luster intact, because it is a sign of preservation. A 1970 penny with full, vibrant luster looks alive, almost glowing under light, and that quality is part of what makes high-grade specimens so captivating. Even color matters. Grading services classify copper coins into categories like red, red-brown, and brown, depending on how much of the original red color remains. A 1970 penny that still has its full fiery red copper color is considered much more desirable than one that is toned to brown. The difference can be dramatic. A red example might be worth hundreds, while a brown example of the same grade might be worth only a fraction of that. That's why collectors store their copper coins carefully, protecting them from air, moisture, and fingerprints that can alter their color over time. So, when we talk about the 1970 penny, we are not just talking about a small piece of copper with a date and a portrait. We are talking about weight, diameter, thickness, composition, strike quality, luster, color, surface condition, and design detail. Each of these technical aspects contributes to the coin's identity and its value. Each detail is like a puzzle piece, and only when all of them are put together do we see the full picture of why this coin is so respected and so sought after. It is this technical foundation that allows myths, legends, and excitement to flourish. Without the solid reality of composition, weight, and artistry, the stories would fall flat. But because the coin itself is such a finely made object, because it is real copper, because it is carefully measured and beautifully designed. The 1970 penny can carry the weight of history, myth, and value all at once. It is not just a cent. It is a marvel of precision, a product of industrial artistry, and a canvas for rarity. Collectors know that finding a 1970 penny in high grade is only half the battle. The other half is preserving it for the future. Copper is a reactive metal, and pennies from 1970 are especially vulnerable to changes in color and condition if they are not stored properly. The tiniest bit of moisture, a fingerprint, or exposure to the wrong kind of holder can slowly damage the coin, robbing it of its luster and reducing its value. That is why serious collectors pay close attention to storage and preservation. The most basic way people keep their coins safe is by placing them in 2x2 cardboard flips with a mylar window. These holders allow you to see both sides of the coin while protecting it from direct handling. Many coin albums also became popular in the 1970s, with slots to insert pennies by date and mint mark. For casual collectors, these albums are nostalgic and practical, but for coins as valuable as a rare 1970 double die or a top-grade red example, more protection is needed. That is where professional holders, often called slabs, come into play. When a coin is sent to a grading company like PCGS or NGC, it comes back encapsulated in a hard, tamper-evident plastic holder. Inside, the coin is sealed from air and moisture, labeled with its grade, and given a certification number. This not only protects the coin physically but also protects its value in the marketplace. Buyers trust coins in slabs far more than raw examples, because they know the grade has been verified by experts. A raw 1970 penny might bring hesitation from a buyer, but a slabbed one with a top grade can attract fierce bidding in auctions. Collectors also use tools like desiccant packs and climate-controlled safes to guard against humidity and temperature changes. Some go as far as using inert plastic capsules that lock out oxygen completely, ensuring the copper color remains as stable as possible for decades. Because with copper coins, especially those from 1970, color is king. A bright red example can sell for many times the value of a brown one, so maintaining that fiery original shine is a constant battle against time. The effort is worth it, because every year that passes without damage makes the coin rarer in its pristine state. The act of preservation is more than just protecting metal. It's about stewardship. Collectors see themselves not just as owners, but as caretakers of history. A 1970 penny, whether a common circulated one or a rare double die variety, represents a piece of the past that will outlive its current holder. By protecting it, collectors ensure that future generations will also be able to hold it, study it, and marvel at it. That sense of responsibility adds meaning to the hobby, turning it from personal enjoyment into something bigger, a contribution to cultural memory. And when we step back and look at the 1970 penny as a whole, we see that it is far more than just a coin. It is history cast in copper. It is art in miniature. It is precision manufacturing mixed with the unpredictability of human error. It is a reminder of an era when a penny still mattered, when America was changing rapidly, when people carried Lincoln in their pockets as a daily reminder of unity and endurance. It is a coin that has inspired myths of million-dollar fortunes, drawn countless people into the hobby, and created real stories of life-changing discoveries. Even though the headlines about $199 million valuations are exaggerations, the truth is still powerful. A penny that was made for 1 cent can be worth thousands today. That transformation is magical in itself. It tells us that value is not always about face numbers printed by the government. Sometimes value comes from rarity, from condition, from history, from story. The 1970 penny teaches us that the smallest, most ordinary things can carry extraordinary worth if we look closely enough. For the beginner, it is a spark of curiosity. For the advanced collector, it is a challenge of perfection. For the dreamer, It is a symbol of possibility. And for everyone, it is a reminder that treasures are still out there, waiting to be discovered. That's why the legend of the 1970 penny endures, why people still talk about it, search for it, and tell stories about it. Maybe, right now, in your pocket or in an old jar of change at home, there's a 1970 penny waiting to be noticed. Maybe it's just an ordinary one, worth only a cent. Or maybe, just maybe, it's something more, a double die, a pristine red specimen, a little piece of history that could surprise you with its true value. That is the beauty of coin collecting. That is the magic of this hobby. And that is the legacy of the 1970 penny, a coin that proves time and time again that even the smallest things can hold the biggest stories.